this might sound shocking or surprising, or maybe not. On Sunday, Mackenzie got baptized. So like I've talked, I consider myself a follower of Jesus in a sense that I like to think about the Christ consciousness and, being a good person and, doing unto others as I would do, as I want done to me kind of thing. But I'm not I don't prescribe to the organized religion aspect of Christianity or any religion. But my wife's family does, and my wife, she was raised in a religious household where you get baptized at birth kind of thing, So whenever, that was part of the reason Megan arranged the baptism to happen while her parents were visiting, so that they could be part of it. And they're just the minister or whatever you call pastor. We were I forget what they're Lutherans, but there's no Lutheran church in this part of Nova Scotia, so I forget which church we went to, but it was the closest thing to Lutherans we had.
Right.
And the pastor just said something that has been sticking with me, where she said, "We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience."
Yeah.
And that spoke to me very deeply. And the baptism fucked with me a lot because, I don't know, it made me miss my unborn, or not it made me miss my missing son, my son Sterling, who's not here with us, right? And
yeah,
and all this stuff. But it was I had a very religious experience during Mackenzie's baptism. It was it's moving me to tears right now thinking about it. But it was I did not expect it. I was not looking forward to it. I just wanted to get it over with. I wanted to be in and out of the church as fast as possible, and I felt myself so moved I might go back.
Yeah, right.
Surprised me,
Yeah.
But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You gotta follow your muse, right? But it was just that idea, and I think the pastor too at this church is very good at breaking down the guard between the old ways and the new ways. She's speaking to people who are looking for a voice that isn't mundane and expected. I've never heard someone say that before in a church before, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's from the Bible or if that's something she came up with on her own. I don't know where it came from. But
I haven't heard that from the Bible, but it does sound like the kind of thing that a progressive Christian would say.
Yeah.
The idea that you take you eschew the Old Testament a bit. The Old Testament is the one I really have the problems with, but the ideas that are attributed to Christ I've got no problem with them at all. I've got no problem with any of those ideas, and I never castigate anybody who's religious, because I've not had their experience.
Yeah.
So if you have a religious experience or you have a spiritual experience that's related to the church, then that's your reality.
Yeah.
I haven't. I've been to church many times in my life, and all I've experienced there is dust and the absence of anything that seems to me to be relevant. But I'm pretty sure if I was in a church where the pastor said that sort of thing, I might think differently. In fact, when we moved here, I looked at all the churches round about to try and figure out if any of them were worth going to, because what I was looking for some kind of community, because I think that's important too. It's not just the spiritual aspects of it, it's the support aspects of it. It's the idea that you belong to something where you've got something in common with everybody. Even though there are things that separate you, there are things that there's one thing that you can agree on, which is like the Christian message or whatever it might be. So I looked at all the churches, and they were all dreadful. They're all they're all exactly the opposite of what I wanted. I even looked into the Quaker church, because I figured out that they were probably the closest to what I would like, but again, the nearest one to us seemed to be, they were going on about stuff that I don't think that's right at all. A lot of the sort of a lot of the more, what's the word, a lot of the more sort of evangelical side of Christianity, like there's only one God sort of thing, which I can't abide. That's this idea that that's the God you pick.
Yeah.
You've got all these hundreds of gods to pick, but this is the one. Honestly, that's not, though, is it?
No, exactly.
So if there was a church near me that would accept that there were an infinite number of paths towards, in inverted commas, God, then I would probably go, because I would like to be with other people who think that. But I'm probably the only person where I live that thinks that. I've come to the conclusion, because I don't talk about these things with very many people, because you can see them they've never thought. Most people have never had these thoughts.
Yeah.
They've never questioned it, or if they have, they've just decided that it's all good and it's all worthwhile, or they've decided it's all just nonsense. Whereas I'm kind of in the middle. I'm looking for a very particular thing that I can't find, but my mind's open to all different kinds of things. So that was interesting that you had that experience. That was. I wonder if that's to do with. See, I'm just all thinking about the quantum mind now. That's all I'm thinking about. I'm trying to fit your religious experience into my quantum mind envelope. I'll get there.
And it makes sense there too. Like that's common for those things to happen, especially when it's like front of mind. And the thing too, like, I'm not trying to, and I don't want to sell it like this idea that I'm going to become a churchgoer, because I'm fairly certain if I were to go next Sunday, I would find many reasons not to want to go back, because I think it was like an emotional moment for me. There's a lot of things weighed up on it, and I don't want to sound bad, but like it's a small church. There's only like 20 people there from the community, and because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing or what, but like there's Catholic churches, like even on this rural road we live on, every mile there's another Catholic church with a giant lifelike statue of Jesus on the cross, and it freaks me out, and,
yeah.
So I think because I'm not a Catholic, I was at a church that doesn't have a lot of people, because I think the Catholic is the big draw. I don't know if everybody I know in Canada from Scotland, or like fresh from Scotland, are Catholic. I don't know if that's just a coincidence or what, because when I think Catholic, I think Italians and Spanish. I don't think of the UK as a Catholic hub, but maybe it is. I have no idea, But
well, the Catholic. Let me think how to explain this. There's a kind of split in Scotland. There's what happens in Glasgow and west of Glasgow, which is what you would call a sectarian community in the same way as Northern Ireland was a sectarian community, by which I mean there's a green side and a blue side.
Yeah, okay.
And the green side of the Catholics and the blue side of the Protestants, nominally. I mean, it's not really the case that everybody who subscribes to one or the other is a religious person. Quite often they're just bigots of one sort or another, because they follow the football teams, which also use those colours.
Yeah.
So the Catholicism in that part of Scotland is traditionally has been oppressed by the Protestant majority. I haven't been in the west of Scotland to see it in action recently, but that's where I come from, and I saw it in action on a daily basis. And if there are a lot of Catholics in Nova Scotia that came from Scotland, it probably was because they wanted to escape persecution here.
That makes sense.
If they even in the modern day, that might still be the case. It might be the case that there are some people who want to leave Scotland, because it can be quite uncomfortable if you're in the minority. We have things here called the Orange Walks. I don't know if you have them there. I guess if you've got a big Catholic community, you don't. But the Orange Walks are the Protestants dressing up in their all their finery. They have this costume that they wear, and they bang drums and toot on flutes and pass by the Catholic churches, singing songs about how they want to murder Catholics.
Oh my God! No, nothing like that happens here.
The Catholics are supposed to stand there and take it. And quite often the priest will stand at the front of his church, and he's there to prevent any of his parishioners from taking any action. But the blue side, the Protestant side, is, in my book, the violent one. Those are the ones that where all the crimes congregate, actual crimes, not crimes of the mind or crimes of morality. These are actual, assaults and things like that. The green side is guilty of that too, but since there's traditionally not as many of them, most of it is on the blue side. And when we had the independence referendum, it was that blue side that turned up on the day after, because the day after the independence supporters gathered in George Square in Glasgow to commiserate with one another, and so have shoulders to cry on. And the violent bully boys from the blue side turned up and started beating people up and the police had all the cameras all around that square switched off, so that no broadcast could go out of what was happening, because they realised that if the broadcast went out, it could cause significant problems. So there is still a big tension between the Catholics and the Protestants in the west of Scotland, as it was and probably still is in Northern Ireland. So that's sort of the background to why I think you see a lot of Catholics. It's probably because they were just trying to get out of all that.
That makes sense. It's the religious divide always. It shouldn't surprise me, because I know, especially like my dad worked with Irish people, so I used to hear a lot about the North versus South type stuff. So it shouldn't surprise me as much, but we don't experience religious divide in Canada nearly as much. The closest thing to religious divide we have here is a media perceived. Like, the media likes to think Islamophobia is a big thing in Canada, which it isn't. It really isn't. But the media, if you watch the news, it is. But the biggest problem we have with religion is that because we accept so many cultures here, like there's, I guess Catholicism or Christianity would be considered the main religion in Canada, but we also have lots of Jewish people, lots of Muslims, lots of everything really, and we have this bizarre Canadian doormat policy that we suppress our own religious like celebratory desires to not offend other people who are new here, but we let them celebrate and do whatever they want, because that's what we're doing. And some people would say it's the design, that our government's trying to turn us into a Muslim state or whatever, or who knows what. I don't, I don't believe it. I think a lot of it's just people trying to, it's just news. People trying to, shitty news sells, right? So, the biggest cause of like uproar here is just bizarre protests, or that are like about weird things, like about gender rights, or about like something that happened in another country, right? There'll be like Black Lives Matter protests in Canada over a cop killing someone in the U.S., and I'm going like, what is? Yeah, it's weird to me, But it's
well, that's that kind of thing spills over here too. We do get that kind of spillage, because we were talking about this before. It's something that's happening in the English-speaking world, because these ideas go around the whole of the English-speaking world, which we can think of as the West, but that excludes most of Europe. But these things, like Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement or whatever, these things just go all the way around because they resonate linguistically. They resonate. Yeah. It's not a coincidence that that these ideas are couched in headline kind of ideas. Me Too, Black Lives Matter. It's all short little ideas that you can go, oh yeah, I get what that means. Yeah, and that goes round the whole of the English-speaking world, and I think it's, So we get all of that here too. So we've got all of that on top of our own sort of indigenous crap that we have to deal with.
Well, indigenous is huge over here too. There's a lot of that. The indigenous protest is probably the biggest divide we have. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I feel like an idiot for missing that, because especially considering I got friends and I'm very tightly knit with the indigenous community myself. So much so that when I go to the indigenous shops, I get treated like I'm one of them rather than an outsider. And my friends and my family find it strange, but there's also anyway, there's lots of background to it, and I think it's partly to do with my hair and my brown eyes and my darker complexion a little bit, because I as my native friend told me, he's like, the reason we would like people like you is because you have brown eyes and you have brown hair, because you look like a slave. You look like someone you don't look like a white person. You look like a white person who's been oppressed. And so he's like, you're one of us rather than, against us. Plus, I'm also carrying myself with respect and friendliness. And if I don't know something, I ask with a childlike ignorance for an answer, not because I want to judge or I'm not looking for an argument. I really just want to know, and I've learned a lot that way and I've found that a lot of those barriers that we're told exist are in our minds and they're being pushed on us, right? And we could talk about that all the time too.